Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to go over chapter 1 today in our art textbook. I'm going to be sharing my screen, so we will be discussing the different forms of art. One moment, please. Okay, first of all, I hope everyone is having a great day and doing well. Please let me know if you have any questions at all. You can always inbox me. I can set up a one-on-one Zoom meeting with you as well during our office hours, so please just know that I'm available. Okay, so again, our art text that we are using is Preble's Art Forms, the 12th edition. You are welcome to get different versions of this edition. However, it will be slightly different in terms of the images that are shown. So chapter 1 is the nature of art and creativity. During a discussion post, we will be talking about what is art. And so I just want to start this out already, the idea of what is really art? Is it a personal expression? Does it have to have meaning? Why is it created? Is there a purpose for it? And also we will be discussing the historical aspects of art and then how art is today. So it's very conceptual driven. It's more about the reasoning and thought behind a piece than maybe not really the execution or the time it was spent, which again we'll discuss. And I want everyone to formulate their own opinions on what is art. Please don't go by what I say, even what the text says. I want you to create and formulate through all these discussions and have information given to you. But at the end of the day, I really want you to be able to have an educated response on this aspect of art. Okay, so also within this course, now when you think about art, we might think of music or dance or theater or writing, and that is all art forms, performing arts especially. However, in this textbook and in this course, we'll be going over the visual arts. Visual arts has to do with drawing, painting, photography, sculpture, performative art, and architecture. I want to introduce you guys to this particular piece. Vincent van Gogh is an extremely well-known artist, as we probably are all familiar with. He was working within his work back in the 1800s, and he's a Dutch artist. So this is Café, Terrace at Night, while in Arles, France. And when we stop and just look at this piece, we see a lot of strong use of colors, probably exaggerated. If you notice the bright yellows, we can tell that it's night, so there's probably lights that are lighting up and reflecting off of that wall. And then we can see the night sky is beautiful. There's no clouds. We see just the stars illuminating, almost so bright that they're almost being invited into the scene itself. We see a few people walking. It looks like even small children. So the idea of safety or family, just a very nice quiet atmosphere. Let me show you guys the attention to the ground plane. So cobblestone, concrete, the sidewalk, the ground, it has these rhythmic forms to it. So as you notice, they almost have like a half moon shape to them. They're very circular, and it almost looks like they're jumping forward. Again, they have a movement to them, a rhythm. They're colorful. You can tell that the light is splashing onto the surface of the ground as well. So it has like a beautiful sense of value and color and experience. And it looks like we're peering in. So we as the spectators are walking into the scene. And there's some empty tables. So it looks like we might be invited to partake. It's not a busy restaurant. And again, it's a nice quiet night. Now here's the actual location. So again, Arles, France. Now, of course, it's a different time of day, but you can see the architecture is really similar. Same placement almost, and look at, we also have this idea of the location too, to kind of advertise, right? That this is where Van Gogh painted the same cafe. So again, it looks different time period, busy daytime. Let's look though at the ground plane. The ground plane has the cement, concrete vibe it is, right? And we understand the color of it. Also too, the colors are still that bright, beautiful yellow, but they are a little bit darker in tones. It's just different, it's reality. If we go back here, it just paints an entire different picture, right? And so what I want to communicate with everybody is that art can really change the way that we view something. So whether we see something on a daily basis, it could be very mundane. We may just stop by or not even stop and continue to stare forward and get to our immediate tasks. So selective perception. In this case, when artists create, sometimes they're inspired by the mundane atmosphere, experience, object, shapes, form. And so they allow us to take a second look, to look again, to maybe really stare and almost kind of go into another atmosphere or environment. I'm going to introduce you guys to some concepts of looking at art now. So this is art and appearances, and this will carry us through the entire semester. We'll be discussing the idea of 3 different concepts. So first of all, I'm not giving you really any information about this piece. I want you just to look at it for a moment. What do you see? So we see different shapes, mostly geometric. So we have rectangular, square. In fact, they're all geometric. And they're different sizes. Now, focal point. Focal point is where the eye is led to. And I would say my focal point would be that yellow square in the center. It's right in the bullseye. It makes you look directly at that. And then you have different shapes surrounding it. Almost kind of, again, a movement effect going. Different colors that are used. So we have some blacks, greens, blues, a little bit of orange, and again, that big yellow square in the center. So this particular artist is Van Gogh, and he is going to show us through a series of slides that I'm going to go through the idea of abstracting down an image. So this actually was a cow. Does it look like a cow? Probably not. So this is known as non-representational art. And here we go. So this is abstraction of a cow. Van Gogh's exploration of how far he could simplify a cow while still capturing the essence of it. If only final painting is viewed, which what we just looked at, it likely would be seen as non-representational, which I will explain what that is as we move on to these slides. So art and appearances, there's 3 different forms that we will be looking at as a class: representational, abstract, and non-representational. Now, art form should be able to fit into these different categories. Sometimes it's clearly displayed if it is one of the 3, sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's all 3. So let's look at our first, representational. So representational art resembles forms in the natural world. So this idea is a recognizable likeness to actual objects and forms. So if you guys see right behind me, this is actually an image that I created. It is a graphite drawing with some charcoal. I used charcoal dust and graphite to depict a cloud scene. And this tends to be geared towards representational. So looking like puffiness of clouds, the lights and dark values. So it has a realistic form that you and I could probably recognize. If we subdivide that and go in further aspects, we have trompe-l'oeil, which is a French term that means full eye. This is really exciting. So when somebody is doing a painting or they are creating a drawing or so forth, they can mix the paint or they can render something so lifelike that it looks like you and I can just pick that off on the sheet of paper or on the canvas and engage with it. Again, something that looks so lifelike, it fools our eye. So it has a lot of dimension, a lot of realism, and that is trompe-l'oeil. Then we have naturalistic. Again, another sub-definition or subcategory to representational art. Naturalistic is the idea of being faithful to the actual experience. So it's natural. It's normal that we would see maybe an atmosphere of people sitting on a bench, walking around a park. That is something that you and I would, again, maybe be familiar with. And then of course it might be representational, where they have correct proportions. They look like they're in the scene. So again, depicting reality. Okay, let's go back to Dursbourg. Here is a cow, the same cow, and this is representational. So we see it's a sketch, a gesture sketch. We have a lot of lines overlapping. We have quick shading of hatching lines. We can tell the cow is stationary and it is grazing. So it's eating, it's just maybe putting its face in the ground plane. So here is pencil on paper, and this is again composition of a cow, representational. Now we're going to look at the next phase, and this is now abstract. So abstract is the next category that you could define artwork in, and this is where it distorts, exaggerates, or simplifies the natural world to provide an essence of versatility. So again, distorts or exaggerates, simplifies the natural world. A sub-definition of this would be stylized. Stylized is a type of art form that conforms to the preset style or set of conventions for depicting the world. So let's think of Disney. Disney definitely has a style, right? Let's look at the main animations that Disney has even recently. If we look at the main characters, and we look at the human figures. Now there is a style. Let's look at the female figure with the larger eyes, the small waist, exaggerated areas, and not the correct anatomy of a real human being, but we understand it as a human, right? And then also think about the male figures, the heroes. They might be extremely muscular, maybe large shoulders, and then a small waist or so forth, very tall, large hands and arms. And so that exaggeration, kind of the idealistic form of the human body, is simplified, distorted, exaggerated, but yet we understand that it's still representing a human being. And let's go back again to Dursbourg. Here is a cow. So same cow, the idea, you can see that it's in the same placement, stationary, still grazing the landscape, but now it's simplified. Now, there's so many ways you can take this idea of abstraction. This artist decided to make more of a cubist approach. So using geometric form, you have all these different angles and shapes and triangles, rectangles, squares, and still the little hatchy forms and lines. So he's adding values and forms to kind of give the idea of black and white cow. But you can tell it no longer maybe looks so much like a cow. Pencil on paper again. And then here is a rendering that he did, a study that he's working now with the idea of color. So this is tempera, oil, and charcoal. So still simplifying the form that we just seen previously in the last slide, and he's creating now a sense of color to it. Now the color, I must say, helps out to represent a cow, right? Now not all cows are white and black. However, this helps to give an idea of the cow. Okay, so now we're going to our third category. So first we had representational, abstract, and now we're going with non-representational. So this is where there's no reference to the natural world the way that we see it. This is also known as non-objective. Sometimes artists will say it's non-objective art or non-representational. So this would be more patterns, designs, washes of values and colors, simplified form, something that you and I would not be able to recognize as an object or a place, a thing, a person. And so here we go, ta-da, with the first one that we looked at originally. This is now, again, Dursbourg. This is the abstraction of the cow, and this is the final non-representational piece. Now, we can see some aspects of the cow since we've seen the gradual change, right? Now, you and I still see the head, grazing in the field perhaps. This may be the neck, this large rectangular black. And then now we know what the yellow is. The yellow square in the center is the body, so the main mass of the cow. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know where the rest of it is, where the legs are, where the tail is. It's kind of more deconstructed in form. So this is non-representational art. It doesn't look like anything that we're familiar with in the natural world. So it is non-representational, non-objective. We're going to review this again. So we have representational art, abstract, and non-representational art. In future classes, we'll be having assignments where you need to be able to recognize when you look at a piece what category these works can fit into. Let's look at this one. So this is again still under art and appearances, and we are looking at representational work. Now this for sure, I think we all can agree with, looks very realistic. The way it's rendered, the idea of the color tones, the figures, they look very lifelike, anatomy correct. Look at even the fabric folds in the clothing, the lighting illuminated from the candle. So really elaborate, ornate, decorative, very realistic. Even the fleshy tones in the skin of the faces. We can tell this artist has really studied and trained a lot of reality. This is titled First Communion. This is oil on canvas. Now, the reason why I put up here, guess who is the artist, because he is extremely famous, household name. He has passed away. This was a while ago, but I wanted to tell you guys that this is Pablo Picasso. Pablo Picasso, we know him as the father of Cubism, right? So extreme abstraction of geometric form and shape. We don't tend to see the work of his earlier pieces. And it's really beautiful to see where he was trained, how he was trained, what he understood, and then what he decided to deconstruct and refragment into his own mindset and thinking, and the way that he's seen the world and was able to depict the world in a really different form. So part of representational art is one of those sub-definitions was trompe-l'oeil. Trompe-l'oeil means fool the eye, right? So these are two figures. They are casts of real people. And when I say real figures, let me just say they're not real humans, but they are casted from real individuals. They are life-size. They are worked with the sense of realism and form. They actually have clothing from secondhand stores. They do have the human hair, and they have this sense of realism. Dwayne Hansen is the artist. Now these particular pieces, the male and female, they're at the Palm Springs Art Museum. And they were just seated right at the very edge of some stairs that you go up to the third floor. And it is so fascinating because there's many times people think they're real because they're not against a wall. They're not the way that you and I may be used to in engaging in artwork or approaching an art piece. They're living in our space. So you kind of take a second look, so to speak. And if you notice, they kind of have these dead stares, or they're in their thoughts, they're personal, they're not engaging with one another. And again, they're not engaging with the audience, right? They're not staring at you and I. So it gives us a sense where we can maybe peer at them and kind of look like, are you real? Are you fake? So really neat to see trompe-l'oeil, fool the eye. Again, they're so lifelike, they look like they can move. Okay, let's go to abstract. We're going to look at Pablo Picasso again. So we went to realism, right? So representational art. Now we're going to abstract again. Now this is what we know Picasso for. So very Cubist-like, right? We have these hard edges, more rigid form. And you and I can tell that this is a female figure, right? We can tell she's wearing a dress. We even know her dress is white. She's seated down on this red chair. Her eyes are closed. She's looking downward. She's holding a fan. And I think it's so neat when artists, they give us the title and give it away. Seated woman holding a fan. This is back in the 1900s. And so this is abstracted. We understand again that she is a human form, but she's totally unrealistic to the idea of real anatomy. She's not how real human is designed. So this is abstract art. Remember, simplifies, exaggerates, distorts the real image. Okay, let's go to non-representational. Now this is a different artist. This is back in the 90s, Rebecca Purdom, and this is called Chin Up. This is oil on canvas. This piece, you can see different colors, different washes of values, different patterns and texture, but we don't really see anything else beyond that. So this would be non-representational art. Now I just have to mention, when you're in a setting with other artists or you're dialoguing, talking about these three concepts, someone could say, well, I see this in it. And they might bring up a memory or maybe bring out a real image to them of what they're seeing. And that's okay and fine. However, in that case, it would be more subjective. So this is an objective approach that we are looking at right now. Okay, and that is all I have for you guys right now. We'll continue on with this lecture. But I am going to go ahead and stop recording. So again, we went over art and appearances today. Thank you.